besties, and welcome back to the Best of Yvonne podcast. I love talking about communication because most of us lack strong communication skills. Now, if you know my story growing up on food stamps and welfare, my family home life really lacked communication. And still to this day, when I try to speak with my mother, that is now 76, we really struggle. And she and I had this exact conversation yesterday because her and her brother are dealing with maybe some conflict, really because they lack communication skills. So we're going to talk about that today. The power of communication. Speak up, speak truth, and speak life. Being very intentional with what we say, why we're saying what we're saying. And really, communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity, fear and freedom, chaos and connection. And fear is only false evidence that appears real, but you'll be surprised at how fear really affects communication. Most people will not communicate because they're fearful of any confrontation or conflict that may arise in the conversation. Now, only 7% of our words are communication. Most of it is tone, energy, body language. So let's dive in. There's a beautiful quote from Paul Watzlawick, and he says, "You cannot not communicate." So if there's one skill that you want to improve in your personal life, your business life, your love life, whatever that is, I would really recommend investing in some communication courses. One of my favorite books is Crucial Conversations by Joseph Grenny. Really get good at communicating. And this is something I'm working on. I'm striving to improve all the time, really striving to improve my communication without emotion. I'm a very emotional person. I'm very energetic. I'm very in tune to other people's energies. So when I'm communicating, I often feel more so than I hear the words they're saying. So if I feel someone getting emotional or getting worked up, I have to stop myself and say, okay, help me to understand your perspective. Because remember, we're always communicating through our own lenses, our own perspective. And oftentimes it's due to past experiences. So I'm just going to share an example with you. I've just recently hired a fitness coach. Now, yes, I know what to eat. I know how to work out, all of those things. But I too, like many of you, like to have a coach that helps me stay accountable, that pushes me harder, that helps me to see a different perspective or just learn other ways of doing things. Now, when I was interviewing this coach, he blurted out his 3 different programs. And then he sent me over the contract. And in the contract, it didn't have a description of the 3 programs that he was offering. And so I wanted it in writing. I said, will you please email me so that I know what to expect? Now, I've said this time and time again. Expectations that are not clearly defined will lead to a communication problem or a conflict in a relationship. And assumptions will do the same. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't expecting more than what was in his program. So he sends me in a brief text message of what's in this program. And so I kind of just needed some time to read through it. And he messaged back. I sent some hesitancy. And I just said, well, I just want to make sure that I'm getting the accountability partner that I'm needing. And he responded back, I'm not your babysitter. I'm no one's babysitter. And if you need a babysitter, then this isn't for you. I want somebody that's going to be committed to do the work. And so I was like, okay, well, first of all, I'm an adult. You don't need to speak to me like that. And I just want to be clear because I'm spending $3,700 that I want to be clear as to what I can expect out of it. Now, in the past, because of past experiences, I've had several coaches or businesses that will set you and forget you. Now, I'm a business coach, a mindset coach. I'm not one of those because I've, in my past experience, have experienced being set and forgotten about. So I took some time. I did not respond yet. I'm thinking through the process of how I want to respond. and be clear with my communication, because clear is kind, right? So I want to be clear, I want to be kind, and I want to be direct. So there's no beating around the bush and no passive aggressiveness. It's just clear communication. So every single day we are faced with opportunities to work on our communication skills, because just like Paul said, you cannot not communicate. Everything we do involves some form of communication. And oftentimes we're communicating via text. So again, just yesterday, there was a group text in my family that went out, and it started getting kind of hostile. And another sister had to step in and remind them that when messages come across through text, you have to leave emotion out of it, because then it starts getting blame and it starts getting ugly. So where in your life, what relationship needs some improvement on the way you communicate? Because oftentimes there may be assumptions or expectations that are not clearly defined that are affecting this relationship through communication. Now, as a leader, we need to be very clear with our communication so that our employees or our team know where we're headed, know what we're expecting, and we need to be able to cast that vision clearly for them to follow. Now, in the workplace, there's a lot going on, right? And there's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. However, always ask yourself before you're having this conversation, which again, I've learned from Oprah, is what is the intention for the meeting? What is the intention for the conversation? And what is your intention? What's the message you're trying to relay? And is there any emotion or personal perspective in that may distort or alter or change the way it comes out, or maybe the way it's perceived? Now, the person you're speaking to is going to perceive it through their lenses, through their past experiences, and maybe based on what mood they're in for the day or how they handle conversation. So I'm still learning on ways to improve my communication so that when I speak directly, which I'm very direct when I speak, and not a lot of people are used to that. However, I'm trying to do it with a smile, where I'm more kind with my voice, with my body language, so it's less threatening, because direct communication can appear threatening. So these are just a few things that I've been working on. I really do need to reread Crucial Conversations, and perhaps even pick up a couple more books on communications. I also just signed up for a 6-month course on speaking, and I'm really hoping to get so much out of that where I can be a better communicator. Because again, every day we are communicating, and only 7% of our communication is words. So let's talk about a few tips that we can check in with ourselves before we have a conversation, maybe a crucial conversation or a hard conversation that needs to be had, right? So we can pause before a reaction, right? So you can either respond or react. And I want you to sit with those two words for a minute. As a healthcare provider, we've learned words such as responsive or reactive. Now, we don't, if you look at the word reactive, it tends to be a little more negative. And so the way I'm referring to in this scenario is, as a healthcare provider, if I gave a patient a medication and they had a reaction, that's more of a negative connotation, versus the patient had a response, which is more of a positive connotation, right? So when you're in a conversation, if something triggers you or someone triggers you, maybe they trigger you with their body language, maybe they're being sassy, maybe they trigger you with their tone, or maybe they trigger you with a direct word. Sit and pause before you respond, and try not to react. There's a small space between the message and the reaction. And if it's triggering you, it's better for you to refrain from saying anything, maybe for the time being, until you can create a response, because maybe that's what they're looking for. Maybe the other person is trying to get a reaction out of you. And so holding your power, standing in your power, owning your power, and not giving that away to somebody that's triggering you, maybe even intentionally, and just be silent. Silence can really shift and change the energy. Or use the phrase feel statements instead of blame. I feel, when you say it in this tone, that you're implying something. So maybe use the phrase, I feel, or I feel when you look at me like that you're looking at me with disappointment. Did I disappoint you? How did I disappoint you? Help me to understand what you're thinking or how you're feeling in this situation. And I think listening with curiosity and not defensiveness. Oftentimes, when you know there's a conversation scheduled to be had, the mind will want to create scenarios and situations and stories of like the worst case scenario. So if you listen with curiosity, maybe take your lenses off, maybe open your mind and expand your mind for a new direction this conversation could go. And just be curious. Be curious as to the perspective of the speaker and be curious as to the perspective of the listener. What are you hearing and what are they trying to relay? And say the hard things, but do it in a loving and direct way. I had to send a message because there's a friend of mine that just will not have a crucial conversation with me. I know these conversations are uncomfortable, and most of the time people will bow out from an uncomfortable conversation. And so I had to be as clear and direct, but as loving as I could in this text message to let them know, look, I love you. This is what's going on between us. And I just have to have peace in my life. And so I just am going to need you. If we're not able to have this conversation that we clearly need to have to be on the same page and to understand each other's perspectives and where each other's coming from. If we're not able to have this conversation, I think it's to the point we need to have absolutely no communication because I can feel my nervous system spiking. I can feel my blood pressure going up. I can feel my heart racing. My emotions are taking control because I don't know what the other person is thinking. My mind is wanting to go in all different directions with this scenario, and it's not worth my peace of mind. It's not worth wreaking havoc on my health, having adrenaline spikes and cortisol spikes. I would rather sit down and have a respectful, kind, clear conversation. But if the other party is not willing to do that, then please no communication at all because it's just too much. So if there's a relationship in your life, if there's someone in your life that you really just need to have a conversation with, be the one to start the conversation with love, with positivity, with an open perspective and an open heart and mind, being curious as to what the other person's thinking or how they're feeling. Because what I have learned in my 48 years of experience is the mind will always make it worse than it really is. And generally there's assumptions going on. And generally there's some expectations going on. You know, I saw a message on Instagram the other day and it said, if you want to be happy in 2025, have no expectations of anyone, no expectations whatsoever, because it's generally those expectations that are causing dis-ease in our mind and our nervous system, right? Like they get us worked up. So your bossy big sister is always going to challenge you to get uncomfortable, to face your fears, to improve your life by learning new skills, trying new things, having a different perspective, reframing the way you say things. And I really believe that all of us could communicate better. And if we could communicate better and understand and give each other grace, give each other space, not blame, not judge, not criticize, and just really see and hear one another, I really, really do think things would change and be so much more beautiful. Let silence do some talking. When you're in conversation, let there be silence. Listen and feel the energy and really, really, really strive to make your relationships more beautiful, because that is, by research, the number one factor for longevity in your life is beautiful relationships. And we know we can't have beautiful relationships without clear communication and kind conversations. So my voice is my power. I speak with clarity, courage, and love. That's a mantra for you to say every day as you go out into the world. My voice is my power. I speak with clarity, courage, and love. Until next time, besties, I love you. Let's all improve our communication. And if you see me and you catch me in ways I could improve, please tell me. I love you all. Have a beautiful day.